It's recording now.
Thank you.
A lot of students, undergrad and graduate alike, don't even realize that there is a counseling center at Texas A&M. So this is nice that we get to just tell you a little bit about the work that we do. We provide counseling services that are focused on emotional wellness and really all forms of wellness, so that those factors or variables don't get in the way of you succeeding and completing your degrees at Texas A&M. So we want to be helpful to you on your road that you're traveling on to earn the degrees that you're pursuing. We are all about promoting and celebrating, really, diversity in every form. And that's going to be a thread that weaves its way through our presentation today. And so you'll hear a lot about that. Common problems that students come here. I mean, students will come to us talking about all sorts of things. We talk to students probably most often about relationship issues, but that can look like a number of different things. It could be relationships that are romantic or friendships. It could be professional relationships or relationships with family members or roommates. It could be a person's relationship with themselves. Maybe they don't like themselves for whatever reason. It could be trusting other people. And so relationship concerns look like a lot of different things. That's probably, if you could put them all under one umbrella, that's probably the most common presenting concern, followed quickly behind by depression and anxiety. But there's many other things that we help students with as well. Eating concerns, academic concerns, career concerns, ADHD, substance abuse issues, cultural factors, spirituality, adjusting to different things, including college and graduate school, even thoughts of feelings of hopelessness and thoughts of suicide. And so there's all sorts of things that we do to help students during their time at Texas A&M. The counseling services are free. I mean, we say free, but you've already paid for it in your student service fees. And so this is available to every student at Texas A&M, and you don't have to pay any money when you come here. We have a psychiatrist on our staff and a nurse practitioner on our staff as well, who prescribe medication for mental health concerns. We also do a lot of testing and assessment when that's relevant. Sometimes people ask us things like, well, does counseling really work? And how does it work? And we could talk for hours about that, but I won't. But I will tell you there's something powerful about being honest and transparent, having an authentic relationship where you're very real with somebody else. And again, like I pointed out a minute ago, that quite frankly is rather rare in this world. And you know, one of the things that I often say is that counseling is for anybody who wants to, it's a tool for anybody who wants to grow or change or be different. And I think that's everybody. I think we are all wanting to grow or change or be different in various ways. Certainly the case for me. Now that doesn't mean you have to do counseling in order to grow or change or be different. It's just a tool that you can employ. It's especially helpful for people that have been trying to grow or change or be different and find themselves stuck and unable to achieve that growth. And so that's what counseling is for. Now, we can go to the next slide, Lena. I find myself feeling a little bit sheepish, I suppose is the word, about talking to a group of graduate students like y'all who have been so successful. I mean, it's very hard to get into your program, as I understand, and you know, y'all have really done well in your academic and professional careers. And so my assumption, it's easy for me to assume that y'all you're better adjusted people. You are people who maybe are more disciplined, more focused, more committed, more invested, maybe have a higher self-esteem than the average student. Maybe you're mentally stronger or more capable of handling life. Are those accurate assumptions maybe? But you know, while it's easy to idealize this group that I'm talking to today, I also know that as you go into grad school, and I know some of you have been graduate students for longer than others, but the quantity and the quality of work that is demanded of you now is higher than ever before. You're doing more work than ever before, and you have to do it better than ever before. And so I know that puts quite a bit of pressure on you as graduate students. Often the barriers that interrupt or get in the way of students succeeding in graduate school are relational or emotional. A&M puts a lot of effort into making sure only students who are smart enough to succeed are admitted. So if, I mean, there's all sorts of research that goes into this, and you know, what determines whether students are going to succeed in A&M's admissions team, and I'm sure the admissions team in your department puts a lot of thought and effort into making sure they only let people in who have the intellectual capacity to succeed in graduate school. But not everybody succeeds in graduate school, do they? So what gets in the way? Often it's emotional or relational barriers, stuff going on in life, self-confidence, depression, anxiety. These things can undermine people's success in graduate school. And that, again, that's why we exist. We want to help overcome those things that can get in the way. Go ahead and go to the next slide. This is just some fascinating statistics about how common emotional distress is for students. I'll just let you look at this slide for a second, but you know, this really reveals that if you're feeling emotional distress, whether that's overwhelming anxiety or depression that's debilitating, you are not alone. I mean, it'd be very unusual, actually, if an adult person came to us and said they've never had an episode of overwhelming anxiety or depression. Certainly in our culture today. And so 87% of students report that they have felt overwhelmed at times by all that they have to do. So we get this. We understand how emotions can really become debilitating, and we're eager to help in any way that we can. So I'm going to turn it over to Lena.
Okay, so we're experiencing this global pandemic right now. I believe like everybody's life has been impacted, no matter in what areas. Our normality, like normal life, is very different right now compared to before March. Since we had shelter in place and also working from home, and for students from other countries, like maybe they have experienced it even earlier, like in January or even last year. So our routine has changed, and our social interaction with friends, peers, family members could look different right now as well. We might also face some difficulties and a lot of uncertainties about life right now. So it's normal to feel like if you see or if you like realize that you have feel this way, like feeling sad, frustrated, angry, disappointed, confused, and irritated, unmotivated also. So that's the situation right now we're all experiencing. So for example, that before the fall semester started, I think a lot of students are thinking about how the format of school will be going and like what are the expectations from my department, from my professors, and these are very different things that students are experiencing. And for students who are international students, like no matter you are coming to the US or trying to visit home, that also look very different. If you're coming to US, you might experience the visa delay and worry about how to protect yourself taking the flight, like not catching the coronavirus. And if you want to visit home, it might be hard because the flights were canceled, you can't go home. So that's a lot of frustration during the pandemic, but it's also a very unique school experience that we all experience together right now. So what's very real during these situations, like during the past few months, I think from social media, news, and maybe like talking with friends, like you have heard the term xenophobia. So what does xenophobia actually means? By the definition of Merriam-Webster, it means fear and hatred of strangers or foreigners or of anything that's strange or foreign. So in abbreviation, it means stranger fearing, that people are afraid of people from different cultures or immigrants. So what's the difference between xenophobia and racism? Actually, racism is a little broader meaning compared to xenophobia. It means like a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities. So one race, particular race, is more superior than other races. That's a belief. So a person could be both xenophobic and racist at the same time. And there are two types of xenophobia, cultural xenophobia and immigrant xenophobia, actually. But both are related to people are rejected by others based on their nationality, race, religion, and cultural. So what are the impacts of xenophobia? And I think a lot of people might have seen on social media and news, like hate crimes definitely was one of them, discrimination and like hostile environment in general. So we don't want that. We don't want the impacts from xenophobia. But of course, like, as human beings, we all have stereotypes, biases, prejudice, like we all have these. And based on our fear and anxiety to people from different countries or different cultures, that we might have implicit biases toward the people. But what is important is to not act out on it. And there are two aspects of like how do we cope with xenophobia. The one aspect, the first aspect is actually internal, and second one is more external. So internally, it's important that we know that we have biases and we are aware that, okay, we have these biases. Like when we think about a certain group, we have a stereotypes. We educate ourselves and challenge ourselves with those biases. So we don't make insensitive jokes, like racist jokes, like toward the people. And when we hear it from our friends or family members, we call out and interrupt those kind of like racist and xenophobic comments. And externally, it's also important that we learn how to protect ourselves from it. So for example, if you're doing a grocery shopping and minding your own business at HEB, and somebody just stopped by and then started to making this racist comments to you, like what do you do at the moment? So it's really important that you seek for help, even from strangers at HEB. So you can look around and see if there are anybody around, or like if you're on campus, you can also look around if there are any other students around. And you can just say, excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am, I'm not feeling safe here. Like I feel threatened, and could you please walk me to the cashier? Could you please walk me to my car? And once a person like intervenes on the situation, actually break the power dynamic the perpetrator was trying to create. Because when a person trying to attack the other person, they think their power is over the person. So if you find another person around to connect with it, then you're kind of coming out from that power dynamic. So it's really important that we learn how to protect ourselves. And if you're only you're the only person at the moment, the situation, it's really important to remove yourself from the situation. If it's severe, then just call 911. And if it's on campus, like go to where the crowd is, where the receptionist is, that you have someone to support. So these are very two aspects that we can both work on. And it's really important that like both we are aware of it, that we are not doing it. We treat people the way we hope we were treated. And on the other hand, it's also important to protect yourself and set firm boundaries. So I will go to the next slide. So we know there are legitimate stressors students are facing, no matter on campus or in your life. So people might experience discrimination like based on their race, ethnicity, their cultural nationality, immigration status, their gender identity, sexual orientation, their age, their physical and mental ableness, their religion, and socioeconomic status. They might also experience you might also experience like microaggressions and feeling like expecting yourself to assimilate to the host culture and adhere as the US culture. You might also face like biases from peers, professors, and some stereotypes. Like, for example, like Asians are all good at math from the professor. That could happen. You might also experience discrimination and some mindset of like wanting to prove yourself, like by your academic performance or like other area to like represent better of your identity groups, such as your ethnicity, your race, and your family maybe. So some students might also experience like being targeted by the campus police by their skin color. But like during the years that I'm here, that doesn't happen that much, but it's also something that we need to be aware of. These all could be stressors like in your life. So it's really important, and we're very understandable that if you practice some self-preservation strategies to like protect your own wellness, such as like distance yourself from toxic environment, personalities, relationships, and also set up firm boundaries and like enlist the group of mental health groups that you can seek resources for. And that's why we're here like presenting all the resources to you.
Okay. There's a lot of different emotional reactions that come up in life. These can derive from a lot of different sources. It may be experiences that a person has had, including racism and xenophobia and some of the things that you heard Lena talking about. It could be traumas, other traumas that have occurred in a person's life, and it could just be how we make meaning of or interpret our circumstances and what they reveal about us. Do I have what it takes? Am I valuable? Am I significant? Am I acceptable? Am I good enough? And in graduate school, you're receiving a whole lot of feedback all the time about your performance. Now, it can be easy for me to get caught up in this idea that my worth and value and significance is determined by my performance. I often get tricked by that. And performance matters, no doubt. But I want to spend some time talking about how to stay emotionally well during graduate school. And we're all going to talk about this over the next bit of time. But like I said, there's all sorts of emotions that can come up: depression, anxiety, anger, frustration. We could go on and on, but I'm going to spend some time camped out here on depression and anxiety and just unpacking what this really means and looks like for graduate students. Depression often has a lot to do with energy. When a person gets depressed, I'm sure you know a lot of the symptoms that they tend to experience. They tend to think about all the negative things about themselves. They tend to feel sluggish and listless. They tend to isolate and not engage with other people, again, often due to the lack of energy. They tend to not eat right, exercise much, often sleeping is interrupted. And you may think, well, if a person were to be in that situation, that they just really need to do the opposite of those things. They need to start eating right and exercising right and sleeping right and engage socially rather than isolating and do these things. But they often don't have the energy to do that. All of those things that we just said they need to do require quite a bit of energy. But for a person that has almost no energy, it's hard to start doing those things. And that's why people get stuck in a cycle of depression. With energy, I often, energy is sort of a fascinating thing. Exerting energy gives birth to more energy. You ever notice that? For example, if I were to go running for 5 miles, you would think that after I exerted that much energy, I wouldn't have much left. And I would just want to shower off and fall into bed and rest because I was out of energy. That's not what happens for me. If I exercise vigorously like that, when I'm finished, I actually have more energy. I'm ready to tackle things and clean out the garage or whatever. Let's look at the other side of the coin. If I were to live in a very sluggish way, let's say I were to sleep until noon. I don't think I could even if I tried anymore, but let's say I did. You would think after that much rest, I would wake up from my slumber and stretch and think, I am ready to face the day. I'm refueled now with rest, and now I can tackle the day. That's not how I would feel. The times that I get that unactive, if I were to sleep till noon, I would wake up feeling like I just got hit by a truck. I wouldn't feel energized. And so that's the fascinating, often paradoxical thing about energy, is exerting energy gives birth to more energy. And sluggishness gives birth to more sluggishness. So I think that's a great illustration just of how people can get stuck in this. Another thing that oftentimes happens for people that are depressed, graduate students who are depressed, is they do a lot of social comparison. I remember for me in graduate school, there was only like 10 people in my cohort. It was very easy for me to compare myself to other students in my cohort and glance at them and look at them and what are they doing and how do I measure up? I made assumptions when I was looking at other students about how poised they seemed to be. They seemed to have it all together, I thought. Why don't I have it all together? I made interpretations that may or may not have been accurate, both about them and about me, based on those assumptions I had. At its worst, depression can evolve into hopelessness. Hopelessness oftentimes involves themes like, there's nothing that I can do to change my situation that feels so deplorable. Or ideas like it's always going to be this way. It's in those times that students sometimes, again, at the lowest points might have thoughts about killing themselves and things like that. And yet depression is a changeable thing. While we can easily feel stuck, it's something that's changeable. There's a lot of different things a person can do, and oftentimes it's helpful to have a consultant or a counselor to kind of walk that road with you to help find the doorway out. And so we do a lot of that here at the Counseling Center. We work with students to try to challenge some of the assumptions or interpretations they are making about their circumstances or about themselves, sort of the core beliefs that they've kind of consumed about their worth and value. And that oftentimes leads to more hope and energy. Now, anxiety is another form of emotional distress that's really common in graduate students. A lot of theorists and researchers in the field of psychology have begun to think of anxiety and depression as actually the same thing. Two sides of the same coin. One, the depressed form that we were just talking about is usually a more sluggish, listless form of it, but anxiety is a more agitated, restless, irritable form of it. Anxiety is an interesting thing, though, because anxiety oftentimes shows up in such a physiological way. You notice symptoms, or I'll just say I notice symptoms of anxiety in my body. I'll notice things like a pounding heart or sweaty hands or tension in my shoulders or tightness in my core. It reveals itself in such physiological ways, and that tells me that my brain has perceived some sort of a threat. That's what we know is happening when a person feels anxious. We have perceived some sort of a threat. And it's fascinating. You've probably heard people talk about the fight or flight response. When my brain perceives a threat, I kick into this gear where I need to either fight or flight. Let's use the example of maybe I encountered a lion while walking through the jungle. This, my brain is going to immediately interpret as a threatening beast. And I'm going to get anxious quickly and fight or flight. I'll either fight the lion to kill it before it kills me, or I'll flight away and run away and escape before it kills me. But either way, I need to be on. I need to be activated and tensed up and ready to either fight or run. Now, you're not encountering a lion, at least I don't think so. I hope not. But I do want you to each think for a moment about what's the lion in your life? What is your brain interpreting as a threat? And do you tend to go into fight mode, where you just attack it vigorously, or flight mode, where you get avoidant and try to escape? Now, I'm really thankful for this system, to be honest with you. I'm really thankful that our bodies are equipped with this anxiety system that kicks in when we perceive a threat, because it keeps us safe, right? And my lion example is a perfect illustration of that. But some problems happen. This can go haywire in a couple of different ways. Now, one is when I'm always in that activated, tensed up state. If it just happens when I encounter something like a lion, that's great. But what if almost all day, every day, I'm in that activated, tensed up, ready to fight, ready to run mode? If I'm always feeling that tension in my shoulders, ready to respond. Well, there's all sorts of outcomes to that. I mean, it's not only uncomfortable and unpleasant, it not only takes away my peace and my joy, but there's all sorts of physiological problems that can result from that. Another thing that can become a problem is when I start interpreting things as threatening, which are not actually threatening. We'll use sort of a provocative example of this. Riding in elevators, right? It's not really a threatening thing, is it? Lions are definitely threatening, but elevators, I don't know. But there's a lot of us who have things that we interpret as threatening that maybe maybe they're not as threatening as we believe. Now, there's opportunity to course correct. Our brains are plastic and moldable and changeable, and there's probably some good reasons why we interpret things as threatening. Maybe it's the past experiences that we've had or watched other people have. It can be a lot of different things, but there's opportunity to course correct with this. I want y'all to be thinking in our conversation about how can you stay productive when you're overwhelmed with emotions such as anxiety and depression. Because I know that one thing that happens to graduate students, well, I mean, I would say most graduate students experience some level of anxiety or depression somewhere along their journey. And what can happen is a shutdown. I know you don't have the luxury of shutting down for a few days, weeks, or months to deal with emotional distress, such as depression and anxiety. It's easy to lose momentum if you have to shut down for days, weeks, or months. And so we're going to talk some about self-care here in a few minutes. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Mame.
Sorry, realized I was muted for a minute. Sorry about that. So in addition to what Lena and Jason have talked about in terms of some of the experiences of xenophobia and depression and anxiety, another experience that's quite common for both international and domestic students is homesickness, which is this sort of distress or emotional distress that comes from being separated from our home, what we consider a home or a major family support system. So for a lot of us, going to college or moving to a different town or moving cross country or even across oceans, can be a very big adjustment, and we're leaving behind a community that we're used to, a community that we find supportive, people that we encounter daily, people that we're comfortable talking with. And that can be very, very challenging for a lot of students. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't recognize when we're feeling homesick because it's not us constantly sitting down and consciously thinking about our homes or the people that we've left behind. Sometimes it can manifest as mood swings. So having days where you're just really irritated or days where you're crying for no apparent reason. It can also sometimes come with this intense sense of loneliness or isolation, even when you've made friends in your new environment, or even when you are physically surrounded by other people, right? That feeling of loneliness can hit you at random parts of your day. Sometimes homesickness can also manifest in our sleep cycle. So we may go from being someone who typically sleeps well, is able to fall asleep really quickly, to becoming someone who struggles to fall asleep or struggles to remain asleep or doesn't quite get enough sleep. Or it could be the opposite, where we find ourselves struggling to get out of bed at the end of the night, or struggling to fully wake up. Even when we get 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep, we don't really quite feel rested. For some people too, homesickness can manifest as a change in their appetite, where they're suddenly eating more than is typical for them, or eating less than is typical for them. Some people may gain rapid weight or lose rapid weight. And so in a lot of ways, it's kind of your body and your mind communicating to you that you're missing that piece of yourself, that home that you've left behind to come to graduate school. And that can be quite difficult to deal with, right? And there are a lot of things that, can make homesickness more intense, or can predispose certain people to experiencing more intense variations of homesickness. So if you're struggling to adjust to your graduate program, or you're struggling to adjust to college station, or to a new country as an international student, if you're finding that there's a bit of a culture shock or a cultural a cultural clash between your culture of origin and this new culture, even for domestic students. If, for example, I come from a big city like Chicago and I moved down to College Station, that's a bit of a shock, given that I moved from the Midwest to the South and I've moved from a big metropolitan area into a relatively smaller community. That can be a culture shock, and that can predispose you to feeling homesick. And some of the things that I mentioned about the signs of being homesick also mimics depression a lot. So a person who is depressed may be sleeping a lot. A person who's homesick may also be sleeping a lot, right? So sometimes it's a little hard to tell the difference. And other times it can also increase your risk for depression if it's not addressed, if you don't have anyone to talk about it with, if you're not even sure of what you're experiencing, because it doesn't seem so obvious that you miss the home and the people that you've left behind. Thankfully, with depression and with anxiety, like Jason was talking about, there are different things that you could do to correct that, or to get back to a relatively typical level of function. And one of the ways to manage homesickness is acknowledging the things that you're feeling, be it anger or isolation or loneliness or frustration or that intense sadness, is recognizing that it's there, letting it be there, letting yourself feel those things that you're feeling, right? And also reaching out to people, especially people that you already have connections with, people that you can trust. It can be family that you've left behind or friends that you have created here who you feel can validate those feelings for you and provide you that social support that you need at that time. It's also important to identify the things that you enjoy doing. Maybe you have some hobbies. Maybe there are some activities that you enjoy more than others, and to try to do them as much as you are able to, or as much as time allows. For some people, they find that picking up new hobbies can also be helpful. That process of filling up your time, learning something new, kind of occupying your mental space to detract a little bit away from the worry that you may feel, can also be helpful in dealing with homesickness. Obviously, therapy and counseling are also very good avenues to seek support, to just talk about it with someone in a non-judgmental space, to talk about it in a confidential setting, and to also get some professional help in terms of skills that you can use, and also just develop new coping strategies if you don't have any that are working at that time. And thankfully here at CAPS, like Jason mentioned, our counseling services are free. So you pay for it ahead of time. So you can come in, you can talk to someone, and you wouldn't have to pay an extra fee for that. And also sometimes something as little as cooking a meal or watching a movie or playing games that are from your home culture, your home country, can help to drastically reduce that feeling of homesickness. For a lot of people, you can cook with friends. You can, with Zoom, you can cook virtually with your family. That's something that I do a lot with my sister and my cousins, is getting on Zoom and kind of showing each other what we're making, to create that sense of connection again. And food is always a great activity to connect over, whether you do it in person or via Zoom, can always be very helpful.
I like that, Mame. Getting to prepare food together, it's connecting on a bunch of different levels. And we're going to talk for a couple minutes about coping and how we self-care. I remember in graduate school, sometimes people encouraged me to self-care 2 or 3 minutes after they just gave me a big stack of articles to read. And it almost felt a little patronizing and annoying to me that, how can I self-care when I have all this work to do? Anybody connect with that? I joke about that, but I really do implore you to find some way to keep self-care in your life at some level. I really do appreciate how busy you are as graduate students. And yet that's exactly why you have to keep some margin in there, some sliver of time in there to self-care. You're so busy, you don't have time to not self-care, if that makes sense. This slide gives you a little a way of thinking, or I guess a way of engaging your heart, which again is so important. We can get so busy that we ignore the heart, right? And that catches up to us after a while. So notice. I think that would be a good title for this slide. Just slow down enough every once in a while to notice what is going on inside. What am I feeling? What is this feeling telling me? Where's it coming from? Is it revealing some sort of a need I have? And how can I respond to that need given all the other constraints in my life as a graduate student? Lena, you can go to the next slide. We were going to do some breakout rooms to talk about, to give you each a chance to talk a little bit about the ways that you self-care. Everybody does it differently. Some people like to do physical exercise. Some people prefer pleasure reading, reading non-school things. Some people like to just watch a little TV, watch a little Netflix. Some people do journaling. Some people turn to their faith as a source of support. We could just go on and on. I really do want to emphasize what Mame said, though, about connecting with other people. For some people, that can be really important and is a way of kind of letting light and air into the darker places in our heart. So that can be an important thing to do. But this wheel here on this slide kind of divides or is an illustration to show the different dimensions or pieces of a human. And I would encourage you to be making sure that you're taking care of each one of these different dimensions. Right now in graduate school, it'd be easy to spend all your time and energy taking care of that professional slice of the pie and completely neglect some of these other parts of you. But if you're neglecting or ignoring any of these parts, it will eventually catch up to you. And so be thinking, and you may add parts. You may add, there may be other dimensions of you that aren't represented here. Or you may find that some of these are less salient for you and you may want to take them away. But I think this is a nice illustration to just show you, help you think, start thinking about the different parts of you that are getting either a lot or a little effort and attention these days. I think it's back to Mame.
No, we can't see the next slide.
Okay. Are we doing the breakout room first?
No, let's skip the breakout rooms just for the sake of time.
Okay. So in line with what Jason was talking about with self-care, it doesn't always have to be this thing that costs a lot of money or it costs a lot of time. Sometimes it can be very small. It can be scattered throughout the day. And one technique that over here at CAPS we like to teach students, and I even use for myself, is a grounding technique, the 5-4-3-2-1, to engage all of your senses, to kind of bring you back to the present, slow your thoughts a little, slow your heart rate a little, and get you connected with yourself. So the 5 is identifying 5 things that you can see around. So here in my office, I can see 3 couches, the back of the door, my desk, my Zoom, and my mug on my table. And then I can move on to 4 things that I can touch. I can touch the inside of my palm. I can touch my hair. I can touch the hard desk that's in front of me. And I can touch my water bottle. And then I move on to 3 things that I can hear. I can hear myself speak. Sometimes I can hear my heart race when I'm very nervous. If you're walking down the street, you can hear a car. You can hear birds. If you can identify 3 things that you can hear and focus on that sound. And then you can identify 2 things that you can smell, preferably very nice smells. So maybe you can smell something that you're eating, you can smell a flower, anything that's close to you that, you can focus on that smell, and then identify one thing that you can taste. You can pop a candy in your mouth, you can taste your food. And thankfully, these 5 steps, you can cycle through them as many times as you need until you feel grounded. This technique is very helpful for when you're feeling a little out of control, or you're feeling like you're losing grasp of your reality or losing grasp of your thoughts and you want to recenter yourself again. So that's a really great technique. Very easy to remember as well, that we wanted to share with you all. You can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So at CAMPS, we do offer a lot of services to our students to make sure that individual and group needs are being met. So one of the things that we offer here are individual and couples counseling. Now with COVID, everything is virtual, so we're not seeing clients in our physical building. However, you are able to make appointments to speak with us over the phone or via Zoom. And we also have a wide range of group services that we provide. After this slide, I will put the link into the chat so that you can access it. But when you go onto our website, we have so many groups being offered this semester. One of the groups that we have is the graduate students group. We also have a men of color group, a women of color group, managing anxiety group. We have an LGBT plus group, and all of these groups are free. Students are able to attend a group whenever they feel like they need one. We also have workshops that are online now, and students can self-register. You can do a group in addition to a workshop. You can do as many workshops as you need to get however many skills that you feel that you need to, cope with whatever's happening this semester. We also have some psychiatric services that we provide here at CAPS. We do referral services, both for outside resources and internal resources that we can refer you to. We also have a self-help website that students can go browse through, kind of see what you may benefit from. If you don't have time for a group, or you don't have time to do individual counseling right now, but you need some resources at the moment, you can use our self-help resources. And we do a lot of outreach, which I will talk about a little later, but we do a lot of outreach to bring out services to students who may not have the time to make an appointment, or may not even know that we exist or know what services that we provide. And we do a suicide prevention training on campus. I think for September, we're going to be having the Suicide Awareness Month, and there was an email that was sent out to all the students to talk about some of the services that are going to be provided during that time, and the different activities that we're going to have to, to observe that month. Celebrate is a weird word. Yeah. And okay, so these are some of the groups that we have currently. All of the groups are free. We are currently screening for groups. There are some groups that will begin as soon as they're full. Other groups are going to begin mid-semester. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, so here is our link if you need to take a closer look at some of the groups that we offer and see kind of what fits for you. And again, I will put all of these links in the chat. And so like I was saying, over here at CAPS, we do recognize that not every student is able to hop onto Zoom and, make time for a session, or not every student even recognizes that we are here. And there are some students that may not also feel safe receiving mental health services through the traditional route. So we focus heavily on outreach programs to make sure that different students are receiving services that they need, and students are also aware of the services that we provide here at CAPS. One of the things that we do is the Let's Talk space, which creates a space for LGBTQ plus students, for students of color and international students to come together and share, and also just talk through some of the experiences that they have related to their specified identities. And it's also a way for us to recognize the diversity in our student body and to support students, especially students with marginalized or underrepresented identities. So again, I will post this link in the chat so that you can have access to it.
Okay.
And one other service that we provide is the helpline. The helpline is made of amazing and very well-trained volunteers who have dedicated so many hours of their week to provide services for when CAPS is closed. So the helpline is available Monday to Friday from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. So that's the period where CAPS is closed, and that's when the helpline is available. During the weekends, they are open 24/7 for a phone call. They provide services like helping you, if you're experiencing a crisis and you just need someone to talk to, you need someone to touch base with to kind of help de-escalate and return you to your typical baseline. They do that. They also provide referrals to on-campus resources as well as community mental health resources. They also are very great about providing support. So if you just need someone to talk to real quick, or even have a question about like, what hours does CAPS open, or how do I make an appointment, or what services are at CAPS and how do I find it? The helpline is a great space to call and talk to someone. And again, it's free for students, so you don't have to worry about, paying. Your information is confidential, so you don't have to worry about your friend or your roommate finding out that you called the helpline for some support.
Okay, and I think one thing that I would like to add for the helpline is like all the helpliners, they were well trained and have a lot of experiences. And we really appreciate that they provided the service like during the off hours time and on the weekend. Yeah. And if you have like imminent risk, like really emergency and like it's even urgent, like you will be recommended to call 911. Yeah, but if, as Mame was saying, like if you're just having some distress or like crisis during the weekend or something happened, you can call the helpline, and the number is at the back of your student ID, so you can easily access it. Okay, and the next event is about the suicide prevention, and we used to do the suicide walk every year, but this year, because it's the global pandemic, so everything will go online. So as you can see, the title is Not Another Aggie. We just want to make sure that everyone is being taken care of. So for this year, our event will kick off at September 10th at the World Suicide Prevention Day, and will continue till mid-October. So previously it was about a week, but right now, since we're doing it online, we'll do it for a month. And there are certain events as follows. First is the 4-week walk challenge. So if you see on our website about the suicide prevention month, and you will be able to see that you can form a group with your friends to do the walk challenge. So your group will like register updates like how many miles that you walk. And every week we will give award to a certain weekly champion that we can see from the website. So you are very welcome to invite your friends to do this together. For part of it is to support the suicide prevention program, like helping people out. And second, also, I think it's good for physical health, as Jason mentioned before, like during the pandemic, it's important to maintain your physical health and mental health at the same time. And there are also some giveaways and the QPR training, as Mame is saying, that the gatekeeper training is online. So the QPR is, I believe with his question, persuade, and refer. So if you have a friends that have a suicidal ideation or thoughts or some history, and you have concern about your friend, during the training, they'll teach you how to discuss this issue with your friend, how to refer them to the resources, what kind of questions you can ask to help your loved ones if they have the suicidality. Okay, I'll give this back to Jason.
Yeah, so please contact us if there's ways that we can support you during your career at Texas A&M. This contact information is on this slide. You can access us on social media, and you can just contact us any way you want. We're here to help you. The next slide has a code on it, a QR code for you to evaluate this presentation. Please take a minute to do that. Lena, if you could go ahead and put that up. We'd love to get some feedback from you all about if there's ways that we can improve the presentation. The last thing I would want to add is please watch out for each other. There's a real opportunity for you to support your friends. You may not be going through some of the things that we talked about today, but you're journeying along with other people on the same road. And you may notice other people that you're concerned about. And I think it's important and just kind and human of you to speak up to those companions and check in. Hey, are you doing okay? You haven't seemed like yourself lately. And do you know about the counseling center? Let me help you get help. And I know that they would really appreciate that. So any questions or comments or anything before we end?
Anybody? Okay.
Thank you again for allowing us to be a part of your group today and taking this time together.
Well, thank y'all very much for joining us. We really appreciate your help today.
Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. And everyone, thanks for joining in. And if y'all have any questions, just let them know or let me know and we can get it